In retrospect, I think frequently that events in our lives, maybe even in the Bible, can sometimes be a foreshadow for things to come. For me, I kind of think that every little thing that happened to me has led me to this moment. The moment where my son is going to be bar mitzvah tomorrow. How exciting! But also the moment where I am the rabbi in Macon, Georgia. Now, if you had asked me a few years ago, would I expect to be in Macon, Georgia, the answer was no. And yet, when I came here, I have found nothing but a home. In fact, family. Seriously, family. So I will never forget, in fact, when Lisa called me as I was driving to Atlanta to go to the art museum. I love art museums. And she goes, "You're not going to believe this, we're cousins." And in fact, we are, and she sent me an entire genealogy. And then she walked me around the building and said, "You see where it says Burned Hall? That's your cousin. That picture, that's your cousin. Byrne family helped found this congregation." We went to William Wolfe Cemetery. She pointed out all of my family members who were buried there. And the place that I thought I would never find a home, that I never would have dreamed of coming, I in fact found a home. And all of the things that happened before me led me to the moment where I realized I'm at home. When I think too about our past, frequently our past can help foreshadow what is to come. As human beings, we naturally look to our past for patterns to help us explain what is happening in our present moment, maybe even to help us understand what might be just around the corner. What I think is also striking is that Moses in the story also was looking for, maybe even we as readers, when we receive and hear the Torah, recognize and understand there was a foreshadow too. He went to Mount Horeb, and when he arrived there, that was a mountain of God. It was already known as a sacred place. Maybe he knew it, maybe he didn't, but that's where he had his moment of the burning bush, where he found God. That same moment, that same mountain, we are told in the book of Deuteronomy, is in fact where not only he finds God, Israel finds God. Israel has that covenantal Sinai experience and receives the 10 Commandments. What was personal for Moses, a personal foreshadowing, became a communal foreshadowing for all. And in that moment, Abraham Joshua Heschel teaches, God took the initiative to find a human partner. Abraham Joshua Heschel, for those who just need a simple refresher, came over to this country in 1951. He was already a well-known scholar. My alma mater, Hebrew Union College, worked to secure not only his visa, but the visa of many other German Jewish scholars who were escaping the tyranny of Nazi Germany. Heschel calls that time as, quote, a brand plucked from fire of an altar of Satan on which my people were burned to death. Heschel went on to publish one of the most phenomenal, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, theological books of the 20th century, Man is Not Alone. And in there he affirmed God is not silent, he has been silenced. Quote, man was the first to hide himself from God after having eaten of the forbidden fruit and is still hiding. Where art thou? Asks God. Where is man? Is the first question that even occurs in the Bible. Echa. It is man's alibi that is our problem. God is less rare than we think. When we long for him, his distance crumbles. He is closer to us than we imagine, if only we were to see it. The Bible, in Heschel's understanding, rather is an anthology of moments where God reaches out to us. It is not a disengaged God, rather it is a God that is fully engaged. It is a God who all of those those moments established a pattern of connectivity toward us, for us to partner with God so that we could make the world a better place, so that we could be co-creators with the world. There is a midrash that teaches a similar profound moment, where in the Torah it describes God calling out to specific people. Abraham, before Abraham says Hineni, Yaakov, Shmuel, and so forth. And in between each of those names, there's a little line separating the two words. Not so in our chapters for our Parsha. It just says Moses. And here we can see what is happening according to Heschel. The Israelites were suffering. They were screaming out in pain, to the point where God no longer could sit back, but God reached out toward them in a way that he hadn't before or since, because of the urgency of the moment, because he couldn't handle the suffering. Heschel teaches us and reminds us of this midrash, that our connection toward God was hanging by a simple thread, and it was God who reached out, reaffirming that thread. In short, God pervades the world only to be discovered by us, Moses, in a small shrub. When we think too about that, how the suffering, that mentality, the onus, the pain, the isolation that suffering caused, almost as if it blocks out our connection toward God, prevents us from seeing God, prevents us from reaching out, and almost prevents us from experiencing the divine. And yet, after Heschel walked through those fires, he wrote the radical understanding that is up to us to reach out to, even in that moment, and see God. And God, Heschel affirms, will reach back. Today, we have wildfires raging in Los Angeles. And when I looked for live updates of what's going on in Israel regarding the ceasefire, the New York Times headline was, Israeli cabinet takes up Gaza ceasefire and final steps toward approval. All of these moments where all of this pain is right there at the surface. Thinking about our fellow Americans whose homes are lost, our fellow Jews who have suffered, and Palestinians who have also suffered. Our history offers us lessons so that we can learn, so that we can grow, so that we can embrace the present moment. Not to sit in our suffering, not to feel lonely, but to recognize that we are co-creators of our world with God. That we can, even if we choose to, work with God in those moments when we are most full of doubt. May our past help us to see the good in our present. May it help us find courage to reach toward God and reach toward other humans around us. May we continue to feel God reaching toward us and not allow ourselves to be clouded by our fears and our doubts. As together we say, Amen and Shabbat Shalom.